Hello, this is Daniel Channels Planets. I'm Danielle Meyer. I have a doctorate in Jungian and archetypal studies, and I'm an archetypal astrologer. I am reporting today on the archetypal aspects and transits starting on Friday, April 24th, and moving through the weekend, maybe a bit beyond that as well, as we look at some of the outer planets. So generally, we have the moon in Leo today. It is in a square aspect, really intensifying this movement of Venus and Uranus together in a conjunction. Venus and Uranus together in a conjunction are pointing towards a liberation of our values, and it can be very disruptive. It can cause a tower card moment here with some of our personal values and maybe where we've been and the things that we've been living by. So if you feel like some things are being disrupted, or some things falling apart, or all of a sudden things seem to be changing very quickly, especially around like personal style, the guideposts that we live our life by, and that's not just comfort or material. It's more like authenticity and creativity as values that are starting to emerge now, that are becoming perhaps more important within relationships and within personal expression. And so the moon over the weekend, particularly Friday and into the evening, will be, and into Saturday, we'll be feeling that kind of intense charge of freedom and liberation that's associated with Uranus. I would say that the closest aspects that are occurring to Uranus as it transitions into Gemini are going to be Venus and the moon. And so those can, you could think of those as almost like our radio antenna for receiving those that ingress of Uranus into Gemini. So as Uranus ingresses into a Mercury-ruled sign, it is associated with air. It's quick moving, it's fast paced, it has to do with information, it has to do with the throat chakra and the sharing of ideas and the intellect and the logos function. So I think that things might feel a bit more ungrounded and faster moving in terms of our creativity, in terms of our, Uranus relates to our individuation. So in the alchemical phase of individuating and coming into a fuller, authentic expression of ourselves. So Uranus can, with the perinatal matrices and breathwork and holotropic breathwork, Uranus is associated with birth trauma related to coming out of the womb. So once we are freed from the Neptunian womb after the Saturnian contractions, and we go through the Plutonic portal of the uterus, or if we're cut open through a C-section, Uranus is this coming out into the world, an individual being that is separate. So that is a metaphor for if we have any kind of birth trauma around that aspect, if that was a difficult birth for us, that can get activated during a Uranus transit of some kind. So particularly because Uranus is in a trine to Pluto, and Pluto has a tendency to bring up past wounds somatically, emotionally, as even just emotional flashbacks. We might not even be thinking about our previous trauma, but as part of a transformation. And so it's not a bad thing when these things come up. They're meant to be integrated and looked at. Pluto offers a doorway to the self through things we'd rather not look at. So Pluto represents repressed material in the psyche. It's associated with hell and the underworld, and it can be a little spooky. It can definitely bring up our deepest fears. So as we're going through this ingress into Gemini and a creative shift within ourselves and within our relationships, which is Venus, there can be some contents from the unconscious that are coming up in ourselves and in our dynamics that we are meant to confront and integrate. And part of this process right now is something that is beyond just this weekend, because Uranus and Pluto will be talking the rest of the year in this trine aspect. And Pluto-Uranus will also be in a conversation with Neptune. This is absolutely a defining transit of 2026 and in our personal lives. Neptune being our imagination, our connection to the transcendent, the spiritual realm, our dreams, our visions. But it can also be addictions. It can also be where we have poor boundaries. It can relate to psychosis. It can relate to delusions, like, ideologies, whether they're helpful or not helpful, healthy or unhealthy. Doesn't matter with Neptune. And Neptune is also oneness and the collective unconscious and our connection to deities and images of God. And so as we go through 2026, and particularly into this weekend as well, we're really going to feel that this ingress of Uranus into Gemini in so many different ways, but one might be sudden realizations of our connection to the divine and the transcendent. It might be sudden dreams or imagination or visions coming through that help us connect to ourselves in a deeper way or in a different way. This can be working through self-limiting beliefs and structures that have maybe provided stability up until this point, but now those can be falling down or crumbling, so that new images and new beliefs and new structures can be built that can accommodate for our individuation process. And so individuating means, connected to Uranus, it means to challenge the constructs and the ideas and the beliefs and the philosophies of our families and of our culture, and to go within ourselves, confront the contents of our inner being, and we find gold. So in the layers of the psyche, you can think of the sun as kind of the main center of consciousness, and then the Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars are accessible layers of the personality. Jupiter as well, and then Saturn would be the boundaries of consciousness. And then beyond that, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto are the transpersonal. And so they represent sometimes, they're not always accessible layers of consciousness. But Uranus tends to break through. It liberates through the Saturnian boundary of consciousness. So we might have a lot of creative insights that come and go. Uranus can be erratic. It can be electrifying. It can be very highly unpredictable. And so, but it being close to Venus and in an aspect to the Moon, Friday, Saturday, those tend to act as channels or vessels. So the Moon being our inner subjective realm, our emotions, and Venus being our creativity and our relationships and how we find beauty in the world. So you can maybe think that, definitely relationships and emotions are going to get challenged, but so will personal style, personal expression, and a feeling of safety in the world. And so what it means to feel safe in ourselves is changing based off of, hopefully, ideals that feel closer to who we really are. So any kind of conflict, any kind of disruption, any kind of, if you feel like you're stuck in a complex or regressing at all this weekend, that ultimately is the doorway through. It's not, one helpful tool here is to use active imagination. Let's say that you're feeling an immense sense of dread, to imagine into that dread as if it were a person that you could talk to, and come into relationship through curiosity and compassion to that dread. And sometimes this can take a while to work with. I mean, sometimes inner parts can be alchemized within a day. Sometimes inner parts take years to alchemize. So, and when we're looking at outer planet transits, such as with Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus, this does present an opportunity to engage with the unconscious in a very revolutionary way that can be highly transformative by using the imagination. And one of the methods that Jung showed us for individuating and making the contents of the unconscious conscious is active imagination. It's a very powerful tool that is rooted in alchemy. And so Jung found that alchemical processes were fantastic metaphors for psychological metaphors for our personal growth. Further, You could think of any kind of outer planet transit as something that's going to activate an alchemical process within us. So in 2026, we are definitely going through a whole setup of alchemical vessels and processes that, and getting, dissolved and burned and then coagulated and then putrefied to become a totally different element. And in alchemy, it was for the purpose of turning lead into gold. So you could think of 2026 as an intense year that involves these different processes of turning lead into gold. And know that some of the processes are not just like a firing or a dissolving. Some of them are actually quite difficult. So like a deadening or a putrefying. And that's kind of what Saturn and Pluto represent. So again, sometimes the doorway through to the gold is through a descent into the unconscious and through our deepest fears. And underneath that, if we can integrate that and find a sense of courage and self-awareness that will help guide us through that underworld, and then we can come out of it, we'll be forever changed. But that's where essentially the gold is, and that's quite a journey to make. So I do believe that 2026 is bringing that up for us, but in terms of this weekend, and April 25th, and moving through the rest of April, we have some insights into what the rest of 2026 is going to put in front of us. So, I mean, this could be exciting, this could be novel, it could be revolutionary in your life, it could be very destabilizing. A lot of people are changing their jobs, a lot of people are really, really, really stressed out with the state of the world and are realizing that there has to be a limit, and so now they're changing course. We still have Saturn, the principle of maturity, growth, decay, but also boundaries, imprisonment, depression. It's slowing down its time in a conjunction with Mars and coming out of a conjunction with Mercury. So as these planets have passed over Neptune and Saturn, they're carrying with them now this new realization, this new vision that we've reached a limit with something. And so we've communicated our limit, and now we're going into action with recreating our life around these limits or around these new boundaries or around these new structures. But it's still just getting started. So we've just gotten kind of in April, maybe March, April, the kind of the realization of not being able to continue anymore. And maybe that was based off mental health reasons, especially with Saturn there. That can definitely bring a lot of frustration, a lot of stress. And in the long run, Saturn brings rewards. So if we can stay true to ourselves and if we can stay disciplined enough to keep going despite it being a bit of an endless desert that we have to trudge through, there will be some kind of reward that Saturn brings, whether that's maturity or discipline or a different sense of gravity within oneself that feels more stable, as if we carry our sense of worth within us rather than needing it out here. So I do think that Aries and all these planets in Aries are about a new beginning for a lot of people, but generally as well, these deeper layers of consciousness that are getting restructured in the psyche as all of these outer planetary archetypes are an aspect to each other in 2026. It doesn't always happen to have Saturn and Neptune in a conjunction, to have Neptune sextile Pluto and sextile to Uranus at the same time. So it's very powerful, and the Uranus-Pluto trine as well. So I'll keep reporting on those throughout the rest of the year. Things are certainly playing out on the world stage that can be highly unpredictable and transformative. And so you can always use that as a metaphor for your personal life as well, not literally, but thematically and archetypally and symbolically, that chaos and eruptions and transformations and, it's just, it's kind of like something new every day. We're in a different alchemical phase of something flooding, something dissolving, something in flames, So it's not to be doom and gloom by any means. It's just that it's kind of, we want to shed light on these things so that we're not totally compelled by them when they show up in our lives, so that we can, really the whole point of like psychological astrology and archetypal astrology is to stay aware of these complexes that get activated within ourselves, to name them, to make them conscious so that they don't control us, so that they don't dictate our lives as they move through us, or so that we can integrate them in conscious ways and evolve with the archetypes rather than being compulsively driven by them, which a lot of people are, including me. So the whole point here is to, for example, recognize when a Pluto transit comes up, relationships can certainly, especially with Pluto-Venus in a trine, those two archetypes talking can bring up that in each partner of any relationship and cause material to surface that can really be difficult to work with and integrate. And so relationships can end around this time. Some can definitely see some pretty big transformations or turning points. And part of it's kind of about like where are we going next in our own personal evolutions, what's going to support us, what does the container need. And so particularly Friday, Saturday this weekend, the moon being the womb and the container and the mother, and in a square aspect is very challenged by these changes, these realizations about self and what's needed. And so, whatever gets rattled emotionally this weekend, I think generally it might be able to pass on as the moon moves forward. And I'll just move into Sunday, into Monday. We will have we're going into a trine, a grand trine, so that, emotions will soothe. They will become, this is a beautiful kite pattern actually, with the moon and Uranus, Pluto. I think that there could be some kind of breakthroughs. And I don't think that it's all meant to be doom and gloom. I think that, and I'm hoping that truly a lot of people tend to connect to Uranus ingressing into Gemini and feel a sense of renewal around their authentic self-expression, and then relationships changing around that, and our course in our self-development changing, and hopefully becoming supported by relationships. That is the goal. And so one of my best pieces of advice right now is to stand in your own personal power, whether things are falling apart right now, or things are ending, or things feel like they're on the brink. And if you feel like you might have to choose between one way or another, whatever you can do to stay rooted and grounded in your sense of self, in your sense of self-compassion and confidence and courage to face what is being put in front of us. I think a lot of people can see some very challenging things right now. A lot of people can see some very threatening things right now, again, that activate our deepest fears, Pluto, and they're not meant to be solved overnight. But if we can have the courage to face these things without dissociating or numbing out or avoiding them, then it can really be a part of an alchemy in our life. And part of alchemy is focusing within on your own inner feelings, thoughts, emotions that arise that are maybe connected to these complexes, these planetary aspects, and making them conscious within yourself so that they're not controlling you or that they're not compelling you, so that you can stand your ground amidst them and call them what they are and realize, oh, this is a Pluto transit. Oh, this is, a teacher. This is something that feels like hell, feels like it's dragging me there. But how can I make this conscious and have a relationship, a conversation with it to help transmute it? And when we transmute images within ourselves psychologically, that's when out here changes. And so I think one of the things that can be activated now is a sense or a need for control, but the way through might actually be through, rather than control, we can only be in control of so much, our own feelings, our own thoughts, our own behaviors, but truly our attitude is is really a power that we're being asked to exercise, is not a push-pull dynamic around things out here, but how can we choose to respond and have attitude towards life that feels reflective of our authentic selves at all times. So I'll leave it there for now. If you have any questions, I mean, please like and subscribe to my channel. I do readings. And yeah, I'm posting daily, Monday through Friday. I have a TikTok channel. Please subscribe to that, and an Instagram. So if you like archetypal astrology, please follow me. And yeah, stay in touch. Watch for more. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.